All right, G. I think we are ready to move to the 3 roles.
Yeah, we said all of
godly
that.
man.
We said all of that to kind of just set up, like, here's the world, here's who God is, here's what a man is. You've got to have an understanding of having a purpose on your life. Now let's talk about 3 roles that really shape what it means to be a man.
Good. All right. So very first role that we said is a weight bearer, right? And you touched on this because you talked about Genesis 2. Like, God made us for work. He put it. He says
He said he put
planted a
Adam in the
Yeah.
garden, and he said, work it and keep it. And that's pre-sin. This is before Adam sinned. God said, work it and keep it. So what that should give you is an understanding that God actually made us to work. He made Adam, the man made perfect in his image. He made him to work. It's not because God like ran out of juice.
Right.
It's not like he's like, Adam, I did 99% of the work. You do the other 1%.
Right.
God made the world, and as he was exploring, he was creating. And he said, like, let me make man in my own image. And what would be great for the man is to give him work to do. God has his own work, and to give the man work to do. He could have said, he could have made the world, and he could have said to Adam, sit here and enjoy the world. Stare upon my creation, and that will reflect my glory. But instead, he created a world, and he said, the only missing ingredient in this world is a man.
Right.
Right? There's all this work that I need you to do, and I've created this place for you to go in and work.
Yeah, and that's back to what we said in earlier on when we were talking about how salvation isn't the end point, right? Because salvation is you accepting the gift that God's had so that you can step into that close relationship and do the work, get to know your Father so you can get to know yourself and then understand the work that you've been given to do. And that's for every single person. We talked about this a few weeks ago, and I can't remember which episode it was, but we talked about, hey, it's a good thing you're there. That is the thought process that we need to have as we go into every single place. I'm here to carry weight. I'm meant to work. And how this will play out in so many different ways. But it's just like, you like to use the analogy all the time of like physical exercise. If somebody gave you like a weight vest or like some weights for your birthday and you started crying about it, that's how a lot of us, I'm saying us as men, we have this mindset where it's like, what's the minimum? Like, what do I have to do? It was me in the ice bath. What we talked about, it was me and like, what do I have to do to kind of get through this?
How do I check the box?
Right. How do I check this box and get done with it? And if you don't understand that you've been made for this, you're going to do that because it's not comfortable, right? Carrying weight, putting weight up, it's stressful. It puts you in an uncomfortable situation. You're forced to stare at your weakness. And so it's tempting to have this minimalist mindset. And then you contrast that with what we have in society where they're like, hey, comfort, ease, retirement. It's like, well, yeah, I shouldn't have to do this.
Well, the default of this, because all of these are roles that like God made man for these roles. And so you can show up in these roles in different ways. Right, you went through a mindset shift, a thinking shift, an attitude shift in the ice bath that switched your behavior.
Yeah,
and in the same way, for the way we're talking about a weight bearer today, there is a default mindset and there is a godly mindset for how to be a weight bearer. The default mindset is like a slave mindset, like, oh man, I'm forced to do this. I'm chained here. I don't want to do these things, and that's where you'll have a minimum mindset, right? What do I have to do that they'll let me go home? What do I have to do so that I don't get fired? What do I have to do so they don't beat me? That's a minimum mindset. Yeah. Now, if you look at that's based upon your view of work.
Right.
We are weight bearers. God gave us work. God gave us a weight vest, so to speak. Like Nick's talking about the joke I like to make. My jokes are very simple and they have dry punchlines. And to me, a joke is not so much for you to laugh. It's for you to be like, wait. My jokes, you only laugh because you're uncomfortable. You don't laugh because it's funny.
I've seen him do this to large rooms, and it's very amusing. But it delivers a point. He knows what he's doing.
Nick laughs.
Oh, I laugh.
Everyone else laughs because they're uncomfortable.
I laugh hysterically because I understand what he's doing. I like watching people deal with your quirks.
But it's about the attitude that you have, right? So we have to be weight bearers, and the wrong attitude is a slave mindset. Oh, why do I have to do this?
Yeah.
But remember, that's why we're referencing the scripture in Genesis. God made Adam to work. It's not a have to, it's a get to. This is what God made you for. The other attitude, the right attitude is what we want to talk about, is instead of saying like, man, I have to do this, right? Just think about like we're going to do a workout. Mm-hmm. If I'm making you do a workout, and I've seen this, right? We see some of this when we do the Mighty Men fitness test. There's guys that feel like they kind of have to do it, and they're still working on having the right mindset.
Right. And
there's other guys that look at the fitness tests like, man, this is great. Like, this is what an opportunity to push myself. And some of the guys make the shift of that mindset from the time they start to the time they finish, which is so fun to always see. But the attitude you have about the work may not be different, but the attitude you have about the work will change not just what type of outcome you get, but it'll change who you become in the process.
Yeah.
Right. If you look at a workout, instead of saying like, man, why do I have to work out? I don't like working out. Working out's hard. Right. If you have that attitude about working out, you might not get the same growth out of a workout. If you look at your workout and say, man, what a great opportunity for me to get stronger.
Yeah, because I think where you can fall down on this is if you feel stuck. Oftentimes, what somebody will say is like they feel like they've hit a wall or a barrier, and so if you think, well, man, nothing's changing here. I'm doing the wrong thing. I need to go do something else. And if you think about how you get stronger, if you've ever like dedicated yourself to any sort of fitness or growth activity, there is going to be a time when you're like, man, I feel like maybe I've plateaued, or I feel like something is not really, maybe I need to change some things. But you don't quit working out, because what you know is that you're going to have to outgrow the weight you have so that you can get to a bigger weight. You have to keep doing the work and keep at it. And that's where I think we miss this thought. If you have a comfort, ease, retirement thought process, the moment things start to get really difficult, it's like, whoa, this isn't supposed to happen. Hang on. Like, I got to get out of here. Like this is not what I was made to be. I'm not supposed to be doing this thing. And what does weight look like? We're saying weight, and it's easy to think about this with our, when you're thinking about lifting actual weights. This is all the responsibilities in your life. This is you developing yourself. This is you, let's be honest, none of us grew up with perfect parents. At some point when you're older, you got to look back at your childhood and you got to reframe some things. You got to change the story you're telling yourself, and you got to do some work on yourself. You've got to grow. This is you getting into relationship with other people, whether it's romantic, whether it's your friendships, whether it's anybody that you do anything with. You're going to come into conflict with people, and you have a responsibility. That's weight. Doing the work on yourself, whether it's in the, like we talked about earlier, but also reading your Bible. These are all things that are like weight and responsibility that you are made to carry. And if you think it's not yours, the first time something goes wrong, well, problems. No. Oh man, problems. No, you're actually made for solving problems. Problems are like, it's key in the lock. This is actually what I was designed to do. So like, let's get in there and figure it out.
You'll understand this because you've been around the world a little bit. Americans have a kind of weird view of working out.
Right.
Not ever, like, we go to the gym and we work out.
Yeah.
Right? That's what we do. But in other parts of the world, they don't do that.
Correct.
They just kind of like fitness is a part of their life.
Yeah, they walk everywhere.
Walk everywhere, or they have, activity that allows them to like work out.
Yeah.
And maybe they're not like bodybuilders,
right,
but they're healthy.
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting. For a lot of Americans, like 22, 23 hours out of the day, they say like, how can I make my work as easy as possible?
Right.
How can I be as comfortable as possible? If you go on Amazon, it'll, recommend to you, here's like the most comfortable workplace setup. Here's how you can sit on the couch and not have to move here's your bendy straw, and you can watch Netflix while you do a job with just your fingers moving on a keyboard.
Yeah.
Like
in an air-conditioned house. Yeah.
How comfortable can we make you?
Yeah.
And you can look at, I'm using that as like a setup for being a weight bearer.
Right.
What if you only thought like, well, the only weight I should have to move is the weight that's at the gym?
Yeah. Very good.
And what a lot of people I think will do with like being a weight bearer, James chapter 1 says, consider it joy when you face struggles of any kind. Mm-hmm. It doesn't say consider it joy when you do your bench press at the gym.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't. There's not a defined context for weight there.
Yeah.
Like what I'm saying is Americans define exercise as what I do at Lifetime.
Right.
They don't define it as a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is to be a great man, you've got to look at weight bearing as a lifestyle, not weight bearing as an activity where I get to choose what weights I lift.
That's so good, G, because that really is it. I mean, it's a natural, supernatural correlation. I think so much of what we see and where people get offended in some of these things is they think it's like, oh, you're saying you're better. I'm sorry. Men produce more muscle. We are stronger. I'm not.
Don't have to argue with me.
No, I know I'm not arguing with you, but a lot of people they'll look at this. They can't understand a function of intelligent design. This is why we said one of the musts for this is you have to have a submission to God and His ways. When you understand God and His ways, you understand that He made people with work to do, and guess what? God equips you to do the work. That's what we talked about in transformation. He gives you the raw skills. He equips you. He gives you things that you didn't have, whether it's people, abilities, whatever it is. He's going to equip you and transform you to do the work. But but we sometimes will look at this and be like, well, I don't know, women could do that too. And it's like, why are we having that argument? Like God has made men to be strong. I just want to draw that line. That the natural supernatural correlation there is that the same way that men are stronger physically than women are, we are meant to be stronger as far as the weight that we bear. You're not supposed to be, and I'm speaking to the men here, you're not supposed to be treating your wife like she's your mom, guys. Like, listen up. If you sit there and you need your wife to take care of you all the time, and when things go wrong, it's like, oh, we'll just turn to mom because she's going to fix everything. You are failing your family and you're failing your wife. And don't be surprised whenever your wife can't seem to, you're like, oh, she doesn't respect me. Of course she doesn't respect you. You need to have her take care of you for very basic things. No one respects a man that behaves and lives like a child. So this is a real shift to understand you are supposed to carry that weight. When it gets hard, let's see some strength, right? Whenever things are like a little bit confusing, they're difficult, they're uncertain, good. You're made for that. You're made to stand up underneath that weight and carry it. So do it.
Weight bearer is a role and it's an identity.
Yes.
God made you to do this thing, which means like you're going to carry this weight. And my own personal definition of strength, the way that I look at strength in my life, some of this is
just getting ready for the quote.
Some of this is, I learned some of this from like watching my dad live his life. Strength isn't what you can pick up. Strength is what you don't have to put down.
Right.
Right. Like as you mature as a man, like there's responsibilities that you take on. When you're 24 years old or 34, whenever it is, you sign for your first mortgage. You're like, oh man, like this is
this isn't free.
This is like, man, I got to make a payment every month for 30 years. Oh my God. That's how you feel, when you sign your first one. Right. And then, but you know what? Like for those of you who've had a mortgage for 10 or 15 years, when's the last time you thought about that?
Right.
Right. And so I say that to say there's weights that you assume, there's weights that you pick up, there's weights that you take on that when you first take them on, you're like, oh man, this is a lot.
Right.
But after a while, man, I think about some of the things I do today and I go back 3 years, I go back 5 years, I go back 7 years. I'm like, man, I would have struggled to do these things today. And I thought I was tough then. I thought I was sharp then. I thought I had grown then. But I've just continued to mature.
Yeah.
And the more you mature, the more weight that you're going to be able to carry. But if you look at all of those weights as burdens, right? If going to the gym feels like punishment to you, you're never going to add weight to the bar.
Very good.
You're going to be just like, man, what's the least amount of reps I can do to get out of here?
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at it as an opportunity to grow, eventually you keep adding more weight to the bar. And what's so funny is people seem to want the rewards of being a weight bearer, but they don't want to be weight bearers.
That's exactly right.
As the great Ronnie Coleman once said, everybody wants to be a bodybuilder, but nobody wants to lift this heavy weight.
Exactly.
Right? I deleted a few words in there. Everybody wants the rewards of being a weight bearer, but not everybody wants to be a weight bearer. But if you'll have that right attitude about being a weight bearer, you know what happens is you keep getting rewarded.
Yeah. So here's what you must do. And then we want to talk about the application as well for each of these because we want to make sure that there's practical stuff. I mean, we've said it enough times, but you've got to commit yourself to grow. You've got to commit yourself to improve. When Garrett talks about how like the Christianity and following Jesus is not a self-improvement plan, he's 100% right. But guess what? You need to be improving. Like it's not the self-improvement plan, but God made things to grow. So you have to have that attitude that you're going to grow. You're going to do the work mentally, physically, spiritually.
In every area of your life, marry a partner who wants to grow with you.
Yeah.
Pick a job, right? Not the one that's going to pay you the most. Pick a job that's going to help you grow the most.
Yeah.
If you pick a job that helps you pay the most, that's probably the most you'll ever be paid, right? If you pick a job that helps you continue to grow and mature, that's where it's like, man, my value just continues to grow because the more that I grow, the more I'm going to get paid. Not what's the most I can get someone to pay me, but what's the most that I can grow. And I'm just saying marriage. I'm saying your job. I'm saying every area of your life and all the things that you're doing. Say, hey, like if you want to get in shape, don't pick the gym. You don't go to Planet Fitness, right? If you want to get in shape. Because those are people looking for comfortable, right? And I'm over characterizing Planet Fitness, but it has a stigma. But if you want to get in really good shape, why don't you go hang out with the people that like just go as hard as they like? There's certain gyms that you can go to that that these guys are for real. Yeah, these guys aren't messing around, right? In every area of your life, choose the place that's going to help you grow.
Yeah, so good. Now, the tool that Garrett mentioned earlier, and we want to make sure the key tool for this is positive attitude. And like that sounds so overly simple. But man, if it was so overly simple, everybody would do it, right?
Yeah.
It's simple, not easy.
It's simple to do one time. It's very, very hard to do it all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect at having a positive attitude. It's just one of my greatest core values because I know how powerful it is.
Yeah.
Right? My wife experienced me recently being this way. And my wife knows this about me. Sometimes she's talking to me and I'm not saying anything back. And it's not because I'm looking at my phone or not paying attention to her. I can't say anything. Like I have some like hard code into myself, and I will not talk negative.
Right.
But sometimes I can't even. I'm very upset. I'm very frustrated, and I just can't say anything because I don't have anything good to say.
Right.
Right. And my wife knows sometimes when I'm not like, you can tell your spouse's behavior. I'm not being dismissive, but I can't say anything more than some like. This happened to us recently, and she wasn't like arguing with me about anything. She's like just trying to tell me about her day, and I can't even talk to her because I'm so frustrated.
Right.
Right.
That's like
it has nothing to do with her.
Yeah. I asked you last week what you thought of my podcast performance, and you went really quiet, and now I get it. So, thanks, G. Now I know how to read that one. But you're so right, because what it does when you have your attitude that way is it determines where your focus goes. Because the first road to negativity is you focus on lack.
Yeah.
Right. And how hard is it for to sit there and go and to pick out what you don't like about things? It's not hard at all. Matter of fact, your brain will do a great job of showing you all the different things. And before you know it, it's all you can see is just all the things that you lack. And what do you think is going to happen to a person like that? Absolutely nothing. You're going to continue to just focus on all the things that are miserable and wrong, and you're never going to be the type of person that can solve it. You're certainly not going to pick up any weight because, you're going to see all the reasons why you shouldn't have to do that.
The reason that God took his people out of Israel, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you like really know the story of the Old Testament, God planned for them to go to Egypt.
Yeah.
Right? God sent Joseph there. Joseph brings the rest of their people there. And what was God doing? He's like, you know what? I love you guys, but you're not very good at this life thing, right? You're going to go learn from Egypt. They're a little bit smarter than you guys are. They've been working harder than you guys have.
Right.
They have allocated their resources and intelligent people and developed great systems. You're going to go learn. You're going to go work for them for 400 years. And then it says that they grew in number, right? They grew like to a healthy place. Now God says, I'm going to take you out of captivity so you can grow in a different way.
Right.
Right. And it's getting out of the slave. You're just here, right? Because as God doesn't have so much relationship with a man as God has relationship with his people.
Yeah.
Right. And
Very
if you
good.
could look at like God was treating the Israelites, even though there's generations of people living and dying in there, God is treating the Israelites as if it was a person. And it's like, you're not a toddler anymore.
Right.
Now that there's enough of you, we can move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And so you've got to get out of this slave mindset, this like, oh man, work is so hard. You got to get out of that mindset so that you can grow into the next area of your life.
Yeah. And inherent in what you just said is an understanding that your purpose is only ever going to be a part of the greater purpose of what God's doing in the earth. Because when we talked about this when we were leading up, obviously Abraham was blessed to be a blessing. His role, his purpose was to get wealthy and to start having kids and start the generational line. Kind of a cool lesson, right? Well, there was plenty of other people in there who didn't have that. Like there was plenty of people who lived and died in slavery, which is hard for us as humans to understand that God would do that, right? Because then Joseph's purpose, he understood it after it had happened, was, oh, I'm actually here to help the family line survive. And so he moved them all into Goshen and to what you just said, and then they had to get large enough. Why? Because God always had a timeline in there, and there's a humility to understand that your purpose is going to be playing a part in God's greater purpose. And so that was what we were saying, is that the belief that you have to have in all these things is that you're made for this. That's going to be what keeps you from giving in and from stopping what you're doing and deciding to go a different route. And here's the part that may break you, because Garrett gave his quote about strength being what you never have to set down. And I love that quote. And we all go like, "Oh, that's good," right? "Oh, yeah, that's good." I think there's a podcast called "Ooh, that's good." It's like, but there's you go, "Oh, that's good." Well, here's the problem, G. A lot of people are waiting for someone to come along and help carry their weight. And what you just said means that we as men have to realize, hey, there may never be someone to carry your weight. Like you carrying the weight of your family, you sowing into your kids, you being the one that goes first in your marriage, it may never flip back around to where it's like, oh, finally, now I get to put my feet up because someone's going to take this weight off me. You said you had such a great example in your dad, and I'm grateful I get to be close to him. But for the listeners that don't have that example, can you share a little bit about how your dad views the world? Because I think it's an amazing perspective.
Well, I want to jump to, I want to really reframe or kind of finish frame on weight bearer in the context of purpose.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Like I think what weight bearer can sound like not a positive term.
Right.
right? Like I don't like there's things that you hear, like the term hero sounds like I like that idea,
Right.
right? Like I want to assume that role. Weight bearer doesn't necessarily sound like a role that you want to assume. Yeah. You're like, is that a good, like, are those the good guys? Do I want to be that? Like, is that the team that I want to play for? Like, you know, if that was the name of like your baseball team, the weight bearers, right?
Well, they better be jacked. But
yeah, maybe it's positive in that sense. But here's what'll like change the way that you feel about that title or that name of a weight bearer. When you understand that, when you like really step into a sense of purpose and you realize the impact that your life can have, when you realize what you stepping into your role can play, it'll make you feel differently about what that term is. And we're saying that like the shift in weight bearer is attitude. And attitude comes from your beliefs. Attitude comes from what you want.
Yeah.
Right. And if you look at like a heroic role, if you like them in movies, right, and that's why I'm connecting like hero and weight bearer. When you look at them in movies, right, there's like a lot of like glam and everything, but you don't see the preparation that it takes to get to that
place. It's a montage.
Yeah, you always see that. Yeah, the Rocky. I've heard people say it this way, like the Rocky montage. You know, like that scene in the movie where it's like he ascends and his thinking changes and his opportunities change and all of that. That can be a 5 or a 10-year period of someone's life that you go through the Rocky montage.
Very
it's
good.
90 seconds in the movie, but it's 5 or 10 years in your life. And so what I'm saying is what'll shift how you feel about being a weight bearer is when you really begin to get a sense of your purpose, and I mean your true purpose, not just the things that you would like to have. Purpose isn't just like purpose isn't your job. Purpose isn't a task that you do. Purpose is the way that I like to say it is like, I'm going to play my part. When people, say thank you to me for things, especially ministry related, I just say it's a privilege to play my part because all I'm doing is what I feel like God's put me on the earth to do. And I'm not doing it because like I felt like being a nice person today.
Right.
So man, this is like the work that God has assigned to me. I wasn't doing it I'm grateful for the thank you, of course, but I wasn't doing it for the thank you.
Yeah.
And again, when you realize like, man, this is what God has put me here on the earth to do, the little things, like Viktor Frankl says, a man who knows his why can deal with almost any how.
Yeah.
And the how of your life is being a weight bearer.
Very good.
But when you'll connect to the why, when you'll connect to the purpose, those little things just seem like not such a big deal.
Yeah. I love that, Jim. And you said when we were warming up, that purpose is the thing you were made to bleed for. Right. And it's that level of compulsion.
When I've seen people who've lived out their purpose, right? Like you're going to die for something. You can die a silly life. Like you can give your life for something that was a waste.
Yeah.
And you can also give your life for something. There's people in history, Christ being chief of them. There's people in history who've lived lives that people never quit talking about. Like, man, look at what that guy gave his life for.
Yeah.
And I don't just mean necessarily Christ died on the cross. Some people give their life to a work.
Yep.
Leonardo da Vinci didn't die on a cross, but he did give his life to really the blend of art and science.
Yeah.
Right. And people didn't see it till after he died because he was so far ahead of his time. But when you give your life to something, it's special and it's meaningful. And there's a lot of weight assigned to any specific purpose. And so when you'll realize, like, man, being a weight bearer is how I walk out my purpose. Some of my catch on who David is and his story is I think everyone has in their life at some place a little bit of a shepherd's field. Shepherd's field is kind of like being a shepherd. It's kind of like being a weight bearer. It's like, I don't know if that's like the role that I just want to jump into.
Right.
I'd rather pick the hero role. I'd rather pick like where's the top role. Which role gets paid the most?
Yeah.
That's the ones that we're going to pick. Shepherd's not one of those roles.
Right.
Right. But David knew like, hey man, this is what God's given me. This is where I'm at. I don't really have a way out of here, even though I don't necessarily want to be here, but I'm just going to be great at being a shepherd. And if you'll be great at the level that you're at, that's when you'll get to go on to the next levels. David said, you know what? I don't like these weights, but I'm going to get really strong carrying them. And that's where he went from the shepherd's field to the palace in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Right. Anointed king moves into great glory just because he said, I want to be great exactly where I'm at. But if you never step into being a weight bearer with a great attitude, if you never step into being a weight bearer with a sense of purpose, you'll be stuck in the shepherd's field for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's so good, G. That's so good. Before we do move on to the next role, can you talk about? I do want you to share your dad's example around what I was saying with you may never have someone come along and carry your weight, right? Because like I talked about, your quote sounds great when you hear it, but the actual implications of what that means in practicality is like like you just said, you're not looking for how long do I have to go before I can set it down.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just on my dad has modeled that for me really well, and I've watched my dad do things for me. I've watched my dad do things for other people in his life that he's been a weight bearer for them. That like this is a hard revelation to get. And I've talked about it as one of the hardest tests that men have to pass is tests that don't benefit them. And I've watched my dad carry weights that weren't for him, but for other people. Mm. Again, that's part of what it means to be a man. So if you want to be a man, just know that you're going to carry weights for other people. God's given you a wife and a child, right? You can carry your wife and your children all at the same time. Your children can't carry mom and dad at the same time.
Yep.
Mom, unless your mom's really strong, probably can't carry dad and all the kids at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean literally put them on his back.
All right.
Right. But that's a role that God has given man to be able to do. And so like what I've experienced from my dad is I watched my dad live out a life that it really benefited me, but it didn't always benefit him. It really benefited other people, but it didn't always benefit him. And that's because he knew what his role was.
Yeah. That's so good, G. All right. So I hope you guys got it. You were made to bear weight, right? And you should stay under that weight. You should grow better so you can lift more weight. And be a blessing for those around you because that's honestly who God made you to be. Role number 2, G, and is a seed sower, right? You are made to sow good seed in all areas. One of the things that we were talking about in a lot of people, because we always want to look at the default thought process for sowing seed is like, I'm going to put this seed in because I want to get something out of it, right? So the question they're always asking is like, does the ground have what I want? Right. And you quite rightly said that's the wrong question to be asking if you're a seed sower.
Yeah, you've got to, the Bible, it's like, what does the Bible teach us first off?
Right.
And the Bible talks about the parable of the sower, the parable of the good ground. And it shows, hey, there's places that you can put seed that it's going to make a return. And there's places that you can put seed and it's going to get dried up. It's going to get eaten by the birds. It's going to get choked out by the thorns. And what we've got to do is be good sowers. Right, and Scripture also says God gives bread to the eater, and seed to the sower. Right, bread is to be eaten. Right, it's a transaction, but seed is to be multiplied. Sowing seed is an opportunity for us to exercise faith, for us to use some of our God vision, which see deep into the future, see what something could be, and put a seed in a place. And so one of the roles that men has to have is to be a seed sower. And sowing seed is also risk. Right. It's good risk. It's walking in faith. It's having discernment. There's a lot of aspects to the seed sower. Where do you want to start off, Nick?
Well, I want us to start with first just being the one that can discern the ground to sow a seed, because I mean you talked about in the parable of the sower, and I was looking up. It's in Matthew 13. I mean, so much of that is a man just went out and scattered seed, right? And we can go past that, just go, great. Well, let's just scatter seed everywhere we go, and we'll just we'll see what the soil looks like. What you're saying is that you have to discern the soil when you're in what you're doing. And here's the thing. Your soil is all around you, guys. This is if you're married with kids, guess what? That's the soil that you're responsible for. And so you need to be sowing seed. It's not like, well, my daughter doesn't listen to me anyways.
It is kind of like with your wife,
right? You
did choose that ground.
For sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You didn't really get to choose the ground of your children.
Correct.
So some ground is assigned to you, some ground you get to choose.
Right.
But you can also look at the ground in the wrong way. And sowing, there's things in life that are transactional. And like I say to people, when you go to the gas station, it's okay. That's transactional, right? I put money in the gas pump and then the gas pump puts gas in my car. That's a transaction. It's not that transactions are wrong, but God made us for more than transactions.
Yeah.
And sowing seed is an opportunity. There's a reason it's used so much in the Bible. It's used as an analogy in the Bible because it's an understanding of where I get to play a part and God's going to play a part. When you really think about the greatness of how a seed works, I mean, it's this just tiny little speck of a thing. And all you do is put dirt over it and water it, and it turns into a beautiful flower. It turns into fruit. It turns into an olive tree, whatever it is, right? It turns into something that's so much more than the seed. And God's really the one who does all of that part. We play a mechanical role in it, like I put the dirt on it, put the water on it. Maybe it just rains. God might do that part too. But God does so much more work than we do with the seed sowing. And where people miss it on seed sowing, right? Because I'm saying there's our part and then there's God's part there. And where people miss it on seed sowing is that they just do. You mentioned it, Nick. The default mindset is, or the wrong way of thinking is give to get. And a great analogy for this would be around networking, right? You probably got a network for your business. You probably got a network for some aspect of your life. Maybe you don't, but a lot of us, business owners and people who lead in a business context, you got to be able to make relationships with other people. That's what's going to open a lot of doors for you. And the wrong view, and I'm going to look at networking as kind of like a parallel to seed sowing.
It's perfect. That's where people think about this.
And if you look at networking as transactional, you'll be a terrible networker. If you look at someone and say, what could they give me? Do they have the things that I want? And if they have the things that you want, then you like go up to them like a cash register and try to, punch in the code to get the money out.
Yeah.
Right. You look at them like an ATM. And if you try to do networking that way, you will be terrible at networking. No one will want to help you. No one will want to work with you. Here's the right way to network. Some people may have what you want, right? If you're looking at someone as like an ATM, you may see an ATM with a lot of cash in it, right? You may look at that person, but man, person has all the connections I want. They have the work that I want. If I could just get to that person.
Yeah.
But you've got to realize, look at different people as ground. And that ground may have the things that you want, but it's not in the biblical context good ground. And what do I mean by that? Well, people operate in different ways. And there's a good ground means that when you sow a seed, it's going to grow, that there will be return there. There's other ground in the Bible that you continually put seed there and do the right things and nothing comes back from it.
Yeah.
Right. Now, transactional is a give to get, right? I won't do it. It's contractual. I won't do it unless you do this for me. And you can't sow seed that way at all. That doesn't work. But you do look for ground that it's like, man, healthy things grow here.
Yeah.
I see other stuff that's grown here. What'll happen if I sow here? It's all risk, but there's good risk and there's bad risk, right? And good risk is saying like, hey, I think we can mitigate some of the negatives here. I think this place has good opportunity. And so if you look at people and say like, man, I don't know if they necessarily have all the things that I want, but this is good ground. And so the way that I network in my life, I've had some incredible doors open for me from people that I qualified as good ground. And I also qualified them as having zero of the things that I needed or wanted.
Right. And you just sowed seed into them.
I just said, man, that dude's good ground, right? Yeah. Like, I'm just going to help him. Yeah. I'm going to speak into his life. I'm going to be his friend. I'm going to connect with him. What I thought the right, interaction was. I just look at someone and say, man, that's good ground. Right? Yeah. That's a place where things grow. And there's other people. It's like, man, they may have what I want, but seed there doesn't grow.
Right.
And that's a different view of networking, but I'm also saying that's really, I'm using networking as an example, kind of my philosophy on networking as an analogy for how to do seed sowing, right? Our job is to sow seed, right? I've got to look for, if you run an investment firm and you have a bunch of cash, your investors are going to get upset with you.
Right.
They give you cash for you to deploy it. You have to be someone who can go look at all the different places to put money and find the good ones, right? If you're just sitting on cash, you're sitting on resources. You're not doing anything with their money. That's why in the parable of the talents, the master's upset with the first servant. He says, Master, I buried it in the ground. Here, take what's yours. And the master calls him a wicked and lazy servant because he didn't deploy any of the resources. You're going to have to take a risk. So really one of the elements of seed sowing is being a good risk qualifier.
Right. Yeah. So for people that maybe aren't getting that analogy, what do you see as good soil? Because you talked about somebody that grows, but I mean, what are you looking for whenever you're
here's one. Well, let's use the example to start off with, Nick, that which is how I look at business partners. Right. You can do business with people, buy from people, sell from people, work with them. That's different than taking on a partner. A partner is someone that you're going to rely on. A partner is someone that you put yourself in a relationship with that they can make you both fail.
Right.
Right. You can, if someone's just a vendor for you, it's like, this ain't working out. I'm going to go get a different vendor.
Right.
You can't go to the partner store and just swap out your partners. Yeah. It doesn't work that way. You've entered into an arrangement with them. It's like, hey, it's me and you. This is either going to succeed or it's going to fail. And so one of the ways that I qualify business partners is Nick didn't know this at first, and we've told this story on the podcast before. Some of you may know it. Nick didn't know this at first, but when we were looking at doing this together, went out to dinner with him and his wife, and really what I was looking for was how his wife felt about him and how his wife treated him. If your wife does not have a deep amount of respect for you, love you, speak well of you, it tells me everything I need to know about you, right? Because some people can be successful in life and not successful in marriage, and that's not a qualified statement. There's some people that are successful in business and they are not successful in marriage, And if all you were looking for, like if you're saying, oh man, they got the money, the resources, the connection, the skills that I want to have, you would try to partner up with that person.
Right.
And I hope it works out. But when you enter into any arrangement, the same way that we did mission planning in the military, is we hope for the best, we planned for the worst.
Right.
Right. And I'm not going to take on a business partner that this will be good if it's good.
Right.
I want to take on a business partner that it'll be good no matter what.
Right.
Because I know the inevitability of life. You're going to go through struggle. You're going to go through tough times. So I was looking for a business. What I know is if Nick's wife respected him, that was because of the way that he treated her, and that was because of the type of man that he was. If your wife doesn't respect you, love you deeply, it's because you're on some level, you're not the same if you're successful in business and not successful in marriage, it's because you're a different person in business than you are in marriage.
Yeah.
But if you're successful in marriage, what I know is your wife knows exactly who you are. I'm using your wife as a filter for me to help me understand what type of person you are. Not everyone works that way. It's the way that I roll. And so what I'm saying is when I took on Nick as a business partner, I said, hey, I know this is good ground.
Right.
Because of the way that your wife felt about you.
Right. Yeah. And I just wanted to qualify that for some people because they may be going like, well, hey, and we always want to try and give the practical. So what Garrett's talking about, I mean, with all these things, we want to talk about what you must do in order to become this role. And so he's talked about, you've got to grow in wisdom. You've got to grow in discernment. What you're really talking about is an understanding of alignment. And what we talk about in alignment, we go through this in depth in mindset mastery, but it's that you have a shared authority and you're about more than just like, hey, Garrett and I both like hunting. We both like, sports, and like we both like working out. Maybe he's in alignment. No, that Garrett, that level Garrett could be a good friend, could be a guy I have a lot of fun with, but it's not an alignment. An alignment is attached by things that are way more long lasting than that. It's having a shared authority that we have of like the Word of God and of Jesus as our Lord and Savior, having God first. That's our authority. And the things that tie Garrett and I together are we have a shared vision. We're talking about it on this podcast, what the vision, what we're giving our lives for, literally our lives. We don't say that lightly. What we do in men's ministry, what we do on this podcast, it's because we have a vision of what men should be like, and we believe in it wholeheartedly. We feel like God's uniquely brought us together. He's put things in us. It's been part of our problem vision for the whole of our lives that we've been like, no, that's not right. Men should be more than that. Guess what? If Garrett died tomorrow, I wouldn't be like, well, I guess that didn't work out. I'm gonna go be, minister to whatever. I would keep going because this is in me, and same for Garrett. I mean, he probably, in some ways, he probably think things would get better if I died tomorrow. No, I'm just kidding. No, but it's that whole thought process of understanding that there's a vision and there's a mission that we're on. And guess what? I said those things about how neither of us would give up on it if the other person wasn't there. Because when you're not based on preferences, if our preference is hunting and something happens and I can't hunt anymore, well, I guess Garrett and my friendship just goes away, right? Whereas with this, it's like, no, we are under the authority of God and we're going in the same direction with the same vision, same mission, same values. That's an alignment. And that they're rare to find, but these are the things that you have to grow in. You need to understand alignment. If you don't understand alignment, we cover it in Mindset Mastery. Come join us. We will literally show you how to identify great alignments and build them. It's a game changer.
I've been meeting some very successful people.
Yeah, you have
lately. Different, like, I love in Star Wars, it says there's always a bigger fish.
Right.
Because that's a scene in episode 1 where there's like this big fish chasing them, and then a giant fish eats the fish that's chasing them. And Qui-Gon says there's always a bigger fish. And like lately I've been hanging out with like some of the fish that ate the fish that ate the fish. Right. Some very successful people.
Whales, some might say. Yeah.
And, but as I've told some people about that, they're like, oh man, you're making some really great alignments.
Right.
And I don't want to be, like Captain Correcto and just correct everyone all the time.
Excuse me, friend.
Actually. Yeah. But I don't see them. Like some of them may be.
Right.
Some of them may be good alignments. And it is always so refreshing to meet very successful people who are great people. Not all successful people are great people. Has been refreshing to meet some of them. But I say that to say, alignment is people who they don't just have something that you want, but they're for what you're for.
Right.
Right. And as a seed sower, that's where you're looking, like where I'm qualifying people, right? For me, qualifying you as a business partner was like, I know what you said about who you are, but I needed to see, does your wife reflect what you say?
Right.
And when she did, I was like, okay, I can believe what he says. Right. And this is the type of person that I want to be around. And I know it's true.
Right.
Right. Like you might buy a piece of land that's like, oh man, there's gold in these hills, like the sign might say that.
Right.
I need to see some proof, right? I need to see something that actually came out of this place. And the same thing for like this is what it means to look, to discern, to look for good ground. What does it show on the surface? But then where can find some of the fruit?
Yeah.
Find some of what's come out of that place.
Yeah, very good.
Right. Of course, right. You want to go work for a company that's successful, right? But how does that company treat its people? Do the people there grow? What do they say about it? And that's, I'm just trying to give some simple examples of looking for good ground, not just chasing like, oh man, they said this is the best place to make a bunch of money.
Right. Yeah, and what you're speaking of really is having an understanding of principles, right? Which takes faith. It's understanding the way things work so that you can see the results. I mean, when you sow a seed, nowadays it's not like they have to go like, I wonder if this one will grow. They know exactly what to do as far as the nutrients, the sunlight, the water, all the different things so that they can say, by and large, yeah, we're going to produce, maybe in a natural disaster, we know what's going to come out of the ground here because they understand principles. So we've talked about business and we've talked about investment, but when we're talking about being a seed sower, we talked about all the things. You're sowing seed when you're working on yourself. You're sowing seed daily by the way that you behave, by the way that you treat your wife, your kids, your friendships. And what will kill you in this is if you have a short-sightedness of vision. If you're just like, hey, whatever's comfortable in the moment, my kids are really being difficult right now, here's a piece of technology. Just go distract yourself. Man, my wife is really being difficult right now. Let's just get through this and not talk about it. Like, you are missing all the opportunities to sit there and go, you know what? What could my marriage be? Like, what's possible for my marriage and my kids if I sit here and I don't just let this difficulty go by, but I stop and I have the conversation, and we are teaching my kids long-term how to do conflict resolution. Because that's really what you're teaching them, whether you know it or not. If you just brush over it and you go, here's a piece of technology, or, oh, it's not that important, we'll let it slide. Guess what? These are going to be the kids later on that don't know how to resolve conflict with their own sibling or with their own partners. And so you have to understand and have a vision to say, no, this is what's possible. And therefore, when I'm doing these things, I'm sowing very intentional seed. And I'm speaking for, while I'm saying that one about kids, it's so relevant to me because it happened recently with our girls. They were just getting at each other all night. And this is where I'm so grateful to have somebody like PK in our life. I remember him talking, and I'm close with Pastor Josh, his son, and he would talk about how their parents would just be like, look, y'all are going to be at the table here until you figure it out, so you might as well figure it out. And they would lead to it.
My parents and Pastor Keith and Sheila would both do this thing where it's like, well, you guys have to hold hands until you can forgive each other.
See, I didn't know you guys made them hold hands, but I said to my girls, I said, girls, I'll sit here as long as it takes. If we'll sleep at the table, but y'all are going to figure this out.
Just make them hold hands.
Right, that's better. I'll do that next time.
They'll resolve a lot faster.
Well, but what was amazing, and I'm saying this as a great, for me, it was a time when I knew what I was doing. I was intentionally sowing seed. Is I was like, I can't let my girls think it's okay to just have snidey remarks. I told them, hey, this isn't who we are. You're not going to our core values. Well, now y'all are going to learn how to resolve this. And so they sat there through many tears, through a lot of bad, shall we say, communication and bad consideration of each other's feelings. But guess what? They got to a place, and you could see the healing and the flip switch. Maybe they'll remember that, or maybe I'll remind them of it one day and they'll have no idea. But for me, it was like a defining moment as a parent of like, we're going to sow some intentional seed. And why am I sharing that? It's because you have these opportunities all the time and they come disguised as problems. Because, I had other things I wanted to do. We'd finish dinner. I've got bedtimes to do. I'm tired from a day of work. There was a bunch of reasons why I could have just been like, well, maybe another time. But no, that's whenever those opportunities come. And you have to recognize that that's what we're saying. You have to have the vision and the discernment to go, okay, like, this is the time to plant the seed.
That's right.
You can plant perfect seed in winter and it'll die. So that's part of the discernment, is understanding when to plant the seed. And for me, that was a time when I knew I needed to plant a seed.
Last thing I'll say on seed sower is really like, this is the superpower of a seed sower, is I think this is where people miss it. Okay, so you get like a level above transactional.
Right.
Transactional is like 100% give to get. I will not do this until I know that you're going to give me that. Right. But you get a level beyond transactional where it's like, well, if I do this, maybe this could happen and I'll take a risk and I'll try it. And that's like maybe level 1 or level 2 seed sowing. But there's a level of seed sowing that I think is so much higher than that, of really like when you've sowed some seed and seen it turn into fruit before, that you start to look at each one of these little seeds and you're like, man, this is a great oak tree. This is an olive tree that may take 40 years to really grow into maturity, but it'll bear fruit for my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren, right? And when you begin to see some of the seeds you're sowing in your life and you see all of what it could be, right? When I just take like an extra 2 minutes on someone that I don't really know, and I'll stop and I'll speak into their life and I'll hear their story and I'll encourage them, All I'm doing is I'm planting a seed.
Right.
And you know what? I may never get to see what comes out of that seed, but I believe the seed could do something special, and maybe it won't. Not every seed returns, right? But what if this seed really changes this person's life, right? And if all the areas in your life you really see the greatness of what a seed could be, what if the seed grew to its fullest maturity? What if this one little seed that I plant right here, this is the tree that's going to be in the middle of the town one day that everyone will come, that there's a plaque on this tree. I'm saying, like, there's some special things that you can do with your life, but you won't do those things until you begin to start looking at your seed and you see the real greatness, the real magnitude of what a seed can actually be.
Yeah, I think about the tree that Zacchaeus climbed that we hear about and we read in Scripture.
Right. Someone
planted that tree and we have no idea who they are, man.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, that may sound a little romantic, but it's true. So remember, you're made to carry weight. You're made to be a seed sower.